So one thing, Matt, that just kept coming up in the, part of our conversation was how the whole journey could feel lonely. And especially if you are somebody who's new and let's say you're trying to redefine something or trying to build something out in a market where nobody's done. So like a lot of these conditions
Mhm.
put through, it's kind of very easy to feel that loneliness and let that take the weight. So how do you ease oneself into a community of shared believers? Because it's not very easy,
Mhm.
right? Because with founders, you're either like super busy and you're like, no, I'm just going to like focus on build, and then I don't have time for any outlet. But there's also
Yeah.
like another set of people where they know that some amount of socializing would help, but they are like, I don't know where to start. So, how do you think people can befriend others in the community and sort of like what's your suggestion on where to start and how to go about and how did you do it in your journey?
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate the question in part because one of the most surprising parts of moving into coaching, and I probably speak with 5 to 7 new CEOs a week, and
Hmm.
we always dive right into the hard stuff. And it's really surprised me that irrespective of what country they're in, irrespective of the stage of their business, it could be a 5-person bootstrap company or a 2,000 person front page of the New York Times. There is such a massive shared theme around loneliness and isolation. And it's only gotten worse post COVID with more distributed teams. So I
Yeah.
think it's such a salient topic. And I know it was very much for me in my journey. I wrote a post maybe a year or two ago called How to Make Friends as a Founder.
Hmm.
And I wrote it,
I'll put it in.
it's got some recommendations, but it comes from my own desperate experience of hitting a point a couple years into my last company where it was going through a pretty catastrophic year, lost a child, lost a parent. In the midst of that, our company was really on the ropes a few months from running out of cash, trying to raise our Series A.
Hmm.
And woke up to find that I was really, really struggling. I had just moved to LA maybe a year or two prior and felt very alone. And I had this realization of like, I'm not going to make it through this year feeling as alone as I do. And what I decided to do at the time, which I'll just share my own journey in case any of it's helpful, is I said, well, I don't have a ton of close friends here, but I've got a
Hmm.
handful of folks that are promising. And I'm actually going to write down a list of 5 or 6 folks and I'm going to go have dinner with them. And I'm going to just open up my heart and share what's going on in my life and my work. And I don't know if any of them will turn into real friends, but I need some. And I can feel my tears coming just a little bit because I, when I wrote that post and I was thinking back on that time, I realized that I wrote the post maybe a year after my wedding. And I realized that I think nearly every person that I had written down ended up being at my wedding and being a very close friend many years later. And for me, it was a lesson that, like, one, it's easy for me to just get going about life and not nurturing the relationships that I really need to be
Hmm.
thriving in my life. And two, like, I often find myself or have found myself really in a victim-y place of like, man, I'm lonely and I wish I had more people around me. And I'm often the one that's in the way, and it's me taking the time and the intention and coming with openness,
Yeah.
and I that was a big learning for me, and I don't remember what else I share in that post, but I guess just one other thought that comes up is I think that what's modeled for us, what I found for sure modeled for me most often in the startup ecosystem was this outward picture of like, "I've got it figured out, I'm thriving, I'm killing it, the company's doing great,
Hmm.
I'm doing great." I'm only going to write about and talk about the things that I've done well. And I'm not going to talk about or write about or share the things that are hard. And I think that's changing a little bit. I wish it would change a lot more. And I think the change can
Absolutely.
begin with any one of us. So even the writing that I do now, it
Hmm.
started without an intention of being a big thing. Way back, we were still running the business and we were going through all these challenges. And we kind
Hmm.
of just made the decision as a team that one of our core commitments was to share openly about our journey. And that felt so
Right.
radically vulnerable at the time. But I think the more we as leaders and founders can take that risk, and whether it's what we write about or what we share on social media, but even more than that, like what we share live one on one with other founders. I think every one of those conversations is an opportunity to, instead of feeling like we need to show up and act like we have it all
Hmm.
figured out and be polished, show up and be honest. And I think there is below the surface for most leaders out there a desire for that, and everyone is kind of waiting for someone else to make the first move. So I think that the more that we can turn every one of those conversations or dinners into an opportunity to really connect, it really has the potential both to benefit the community and also for each of us to find more real connection.